Welcome to another study style session for the BJCP training program from the Brewers Anonymous Homebrew Club. We're continuing our look at Category 3, and we are up to Subcategory 3C, Czech Amber Lager. Now, before we begin, I'm going to say right off the bat, if you didn't read it in the description, I do not have not only a style that's listed in the BJCP guidelines to sample in this video for this beer, I also don't have a Czech Amber Lager. So this will be the first time we're going through this process in one of these study style sessions with a knowingly out of style beer. So I wanted to point that out before we start, if you didn't already see that in the notes. So this is going to be something a little different. But what is the same, that we need to start off with the vital statistics. So the vital statistics for a Czech Amber Lager are: original gravity range is 1.044 to 1.060. Final gravity range is 1.013 to 1.017. IBU range is 20 to 35. SRM range is 10 to 16. And the ABV range is 4.4 to 5.8%. All right, let's take a look at the overall impression according to the guidelines for a Czech Amber Lager. That reads: a multi-amber Czech lager with a hop character that can vary from low to quite significant. The malt flavors can vary, lending to different interpretations and balances ranging from drier, bready, and slightly biscuity to sweeter and somewhat caramel-like. Okay, so that brings us to the characteristics that we are going to be looking for and seeing how this beer matches up, or more so than ever, how this beer does not match up, starting with aroma. Aroma reads: moderate intensity. Rich malt aroma can be either bready with Maillard product dominant or slightly caramel sweet. Spicy floral or herbal hop character may be moderate to none. Clean lager character, though low fruity esters, stone fruit, or berries may be present. Low diacetyl optional. On to appearance, we have deep amber to copper color, clear to bright clarity, large off-white persistent head. For flavor, here we go. We have got complex malt flavor is dominant, medium to medium high, though the nature may vary from dry and Maillard product dominant to caramely and almost sweet. Some examples have a candy-like to graham cracker malt character. Low to moderate spicy hop flavor. Prominent but clean hop bitterness provides a balanced finish. Subtle plum or berry ester is optional. Low diacetyl optional. No roasted malt flavor. Finish may vary from dry and hoppy to relatively sweet. And then finally, we have mouthfeel, medium full to medium body, soft and round, often with a gentle creaminess, and moderate to low carbonation. All right, so there are commercial examples listed in the guidelines. They're on the screen right now. I have never seen any of these beers, even in the liquor superstore that I shop at and find most of my beers. None at all. So going back to that first video, if you didn't see the introduction video to this style session, this series, Category 3, this particular set of sessions, I should say, Category 3 again, I mentioned one of the things we could do to balance off that inexperience we're going to have this beer is get a beer that's somewhere in the range close to it, even though we know it's out of style. And that's exactly what I did. I was able to find an amber beer, an amber lager, I should say, sorry, that is on the list for commercial examples for Category 2. Category 2B, I believe, is Amber, International Amber Lager. So I do have something fairly close. There should be some similarities to this, and there is going to be some differences, but this is the first opportunity I have knowingly to score a beer that's going to be out of style. So let's get started with that. I need to find my study card for Czech Amber Lager, and notes on back. We're going to see them on the screen right now. As I crack this open, no cap to open, I cannot help, whenever I have a can in my hand, even when it's something still, I have to tap the top. It's habit. So let's see. Cracking the can instead of opening the bottle on mic, as has become tradition very quickly. All right. Getting set up to pour here so I can try to do a good camera pour. All right. Not bad. Actually, very good. Okay. Let's start with what we see. So it is amber, like it's very light copper end. It's not very dark. I'd say it's closer to Yeah, kind of that copper than actual amber, but I believe it's in range without having do I? I have to check. Usually, sometimes I do have I do have an SRM card in front of me. I guess I could, here it is. Just see if doing it this way, it's around, I'd say probably 8, looking at 7 and 9. So just I think that's actually low. I think it started at 10, but it's fairly clear. I always have a little trouble with condensation in the humidity of Orlando, and the head is actually, all that ranting I just did there, the head is still standing pretty well. That's it's got a nice texture. It poured a little larger than it is now, but it's holding really well. So nice head retention on that too. So let's go to aroma. Oh wow, okay. Definitely got that caramel note that we had read that we could have. Definitely that kind of Maillard reaction type aromas along with that as well. Some floral hop, little spicy hop too. And just the kind of base malt sweetness without anything real specific. And there's definitely some ester. I want to kind of stir this a little bit. It's a little too full to swirl it. There we go. Yeah. More of a dark fruit than a stone fruit. It's closer to, it's not quite raisin and plum and prune, but it's closer to that than it is an apple or pear or a peach. So definitely some esters coming off of that one. All right, let's go to taste. Wow. There's certainly a bitterness present. That is a little off-putting in a way that I was surprised. Not that I don't like it. The aroma is so sweet compared to the bitterness I just had in that sip that it was a little surprising. That's a better word to say, not off-putting, surprising. So let's take another, now that my palate is adjusted, let's take another sip. Malt-wise, I get a lot of exactly what I smell, except for the fruit. That kind of raisin dark fruit type spectrum of aromas is not coming out in the flavor. It's more of a very light caramel, little bit of dark sugar, caramelized sugar in there. And I'm getting more of the base malt character. I'm getting a little bit of breadiness, just a little hint of the sweet malt underneath what is primarily the caramel sweetness, but I do get that base malt flavor. And I'd say a little bit, let me try one more sip here. I'd say more of a earthy herbal, bordering on spicy hop flavor. That floral aroma might have been just enhanced by the caramel sweetness of the malts. It's more of a earthy hop, pleasant, but definitely not the floral that I was initially getting. All right, let's see, according to this, what I should be getting. So aroma, moderate, rich malt aroma. Okay, little low on what I would call rich malt aroma. Can be bready with Maillard product dominant or caramely sweet. Okay, so that fits in that what is that? Oh, gosh. Can't think of the word. I hate when I get stuck on these words, but that exception, sort of? Not really. Not a full exception, but that description for sure. Moderate to no spicy floral herbal hops. Spicy floral herbal hop. I do get a little bit of that. Clean lager character. To me, I'm not getting that distinct lager character I got in the first two. I'm getting things that come more from an ale type of fermentation, but without it being distinctly ale. It's those fruity esters I more kind of associate with ale, especially a British yeast. So that is closer to an ale character without being specifically ale yeast, and I certainly don't get that lager yeast character I've been talking about in the past two beers. Low fruity esters may be present. I do have that. Low diacetyl optional. No diacetyl on this. Appearance, deep amber to copper in color. I believe this is too light, if judging for this style. Clear to bright clarity. I would call it clear. It's definitely not hazy or cloudy yet. Hard to see, again, in the condensation in this weather in this room, on this camera. Large off-white persistent head. Not quite large, more medium, but it's off-white. It was kind of a tan color, and it definitely was persistent. A lot of it is still there. I don't know if I can show you. Oh, yeah, you can actually kind of see that, even though it's focused more on me. There you go. A lot of that head is still there, even after all that tasting, and it's sitting here as I'm talking. Flavor, medium to medium-high complex malt flavor. Maillard product dominant to caramely. Yes, I get some of those characters for sure. Low to moderate spice. hop flavor. I do get some low spicy hop flavor. Clean hop bitterness, absolutely. Low to moderate spicy hop flavor. I just realized I have that listed here on twice. I'll take one of those out on the downloads that you're going to get so you're not repeating yourself and memorizing too much information repeatedly. Goes on esters and low diacetyl optional. I do get some slight esters, not near as much as I did in the aroma. No roasted malts, and I get no roasted malts. Mouthfeel I did not talk about, but let's see how it compares. Medium full to medium body. Yeah, I'd say this is medium, but not quite medium full. It's a little short of that. Soft and round with a gentle creaminess. Yes, there's a definite distinct texture on that. I wish I had mentioned that. It's very pleasant. There's a very nice, soft, creamy texture to this beer. Moderate to low carbonation, definitely moderately carbonated. All right, I am going to now pause the video, but before I fill up my score sheet, again, I'm going to read this a little slower than I just did and take in what this says so that I can apply as much as I can remember this go-round to this judging session of this beer. And I'm going to judge this beer. I'm going to judge this beer as a 3C Czech Amber Lager, knowing full well it's an example of an international amber lager. And hopefully I can keep that part out of my head as I judge and judge this accurately and get the practice in of judging beers out of style, because that's going to be on the exam and that's going to happen a lot in real life judging. It already has happened a lot in real life judging to me and maybe you as well. So, all right, I'm going to take care of that now. I got to pause the camera. So I will see you back in about 12 minutes. I am back, score sheet in hand. I hope you've done this exercise along with me as well. As I've said 1,000 times and going to say 1,000 more times, practice, practice, practice. That is the key to this exam. So, all right, let's take a look at this. First time we've done this, scored a beer that is not the style. Although like I said, even though we knew what it was, I tried to put that out of my head, which I think I did fairly well, and go ahead and score this based on what it should be if this were entered as a Czech Amber Lager. So let me say, first off, anyone that's a Brooklyn Lager fan, I am a Brooklyn Lager fan, I'm a Brooklyn beer fan as well. This score is this beer judged as a Czech Amber Lager. This is not a score for Brooklyn Lager. So don't get upset when you hear this final number, because it is not indicative of what I really think of this beer. So I think of this beer if it's supposed to be a Czech Amber Lager, which we clearly know it's not. Okay, I think the disclaimer of all disclaimers is now said. All right, let's start off with aroma. Sweet, candy, soft caramel notes up front, light, but noticeable kettle caramelization Maillard character, delicate floral and herbal hop notes, moderate dark fruit ester profile of raisin and plum, no distinct or discernible lager yeast character. And that's ultimately going to be the downfall of this beer in the Czech lager category. And I gave that an 8 out of 12. Appearance. Dark yellow to light amber in color, a shade too light for style, fairly clear, medium low light tan head on pour that lingers, thick, frothy in texture. 2 out of 3 on that. The point taken away is mainly for the color. It's just it's too light for this style. Flavor, strong but smooth bitterness on tongue, palate finish, and lingering in the aftertaste. Moderate sweet caramel malt with rich kettle caramelization notes. Low earthy hop flavor with a bit of herbal flavor in the finish. Light fruity esters of raisin and sweet plum. A noticeable but not overwhelming presence of diacetyl as the sample warmed up, which I did get. I did not get that in the initial tasting, but it did sit longer. It took me longer to fill out this sheet than it did that tasting, and I started to get a little diacetyl at the end. In fact, now it's even warmer. Let's see what that's like. Okay, it's no worse than it was before. It's very little, which, if I remember correctly, let's see, looking at my sheet. Yes, esters and low diacetyl optional, or diacetyl, depending on you say it. I've now learned, after many years of judging and being in a couple brew clubs, it all depends on the first time you heard it. And I heard that word first said as diacetyl, but I also have heard since then people call it diacetyl. So when I'm saying diacetyl, if you say diacetyl, that's what I mean. I don't know which one of us is right. Probably you, but that's where the pronunciation comes from. The first time I heard that word pronounced, it was diacetyl. Okay, anyway. Mouthfeel. Medium-bodied, moderate carbonation level, a very pleasant medium to medium full cream-like texture, a slight alcohol warmth, more distinct as the sample warms up. No astringency, and I gave that a 3 out of 5, and I forgot to mention after my diacetyl rant that my score for flavor was 15 out of 20. So 15 out of 20 for flavor, 3 out of 5 for mouthfeel. Overall impression, a clean, well-made, well-crafted beer. Malt and hop bitterness combination is very pleasant. The yeast-driven character presents more as an ale yeast forward. Probably missed a word there. More as ale yeast forward than lager yeast driven with a dark fruit ester note. The crisp, clean lager character is missing. Consider changing yeast or fermenting longer at cooler temperatures. And that's a 6 out of 10 for 34 out of 50, which is still very good. And again, this is not an example of this style. It's an example of a completely different category, albeit very close in nature, but it's not brewed to be a Czech amber lager. So 34, even at that, 34 is pretty good. And as far as the rest of it goes, there's where I get this in frame. There's where I circled it and I dropped a notch on the matrix, except for the intangibles. I enjoyed this beer, so it's wonderful. It's clean. There's nothing really technically, what's the word I'm looking for? Process-wise wrong with it. It's not like it was fermented like really hot and there's a ton of fusel alcohols in it, or it's infected or anything like that. It's just, again, it's not the style, and we know it's not the style. I don't need to belabor that point. So that's our first example of this. We're going to do this again in the next video, and we're going to do this some more. It's just the way the nature of this hobby works. I don't have access to all nearly 90 beers that we're going to need to review, and you probably don't either, no matter where you're viewing this from. If you do, great, fantastic. That's awesome. I mean, you're ahead of the curve than most of us that are taking this course. But in this case, we're going to have to, in some cases, I should say, we're going to have to judge beers that are not the style. So we're going to pick up where we left off with that idea in the next one. In fact, why don't we get over there? Let's go on to the next category. It is 3D Czech Dark Lager. And again, we have a commercial beer, but it is not the style. And we'll discuss that more in the next video. I'll see you there.